I've been asked once or twice in the last month or so, I guess maybe a few more times, a little bit about Chat GPT. Specifically, is it going to kill or spell the end of blogging? So in this video today, I want to take the culmination of everything that I've learned over weeks, plus my experience with blogging, and many of these kind of scares with new technology, as well as adaptations that we as bloggers have had to make over time. This isn't the first time that disruptive technology has impacted blogging. And so I'm gonna just boil this all down and share with you what I see coming, as well as just how these things are going to impact blogging, because they are, and what we as bloggers need to do about it to make sure that we stay relevant and actually continue to thrive going forward into the future. So that's what we're gonna talk about over the rest of this video. So in case you haven't seen it yet, Chat GPT is an AI tool that it's really trained in dialogue. And so you can ask it questions and it provides you answers back. It's really cool. Some of the things that I've seen have been awesome. A member of Project 24 asked it to write a limerick about me. And here's what it came up with. There once was a man named Ricky Kessler who was quite the intelligent fellow. He founded Income School to help others be cool and live a financially sound life of leisure. Honestly, I think that's pretty awesome. And if you've been watching YouTube, you know that there are just so many cool things ChatGPT can do. It's writing computer code, it's writing full essays for people. I'm a little bit concerned about some of the use cases here and ways that it's going to allow people to circumvent, thought. So that begs the question, what is the impact of ChatGPT, as well as just continued advancements in AI, on the future of SEO and on blogging? That's a really big question, and frankly, none of us really knows the full scope of how this is going to change things. But some things are already changing, and those are easy to see, as well as the changes that are just a step away. So first, let's talk about SEO. What's the impact to actual search? There are two areas where I see the biggest change coming for SEO. The first one is in actual user behavior, and that is as AIs become more powerful, I can see people leaning on them far more for a lot of really fact-based and information-based answers to their questions. Where somebody today would go to Google and might search a question like, what is a trombone? And then they would get these answers, they'd get a definition right here as a rich snippet, as well as just a whole bunch of content about trombones, some dictionary definitions, video about how it works, etc., etc., etc. Well, if the AIs are getting really good and they become very easy to use, meaning we start to incorporate this type of AI, this sophistication of AI, into tools like Alexa and Siri, your personal assistant being able to provide you with this level of answer, and where you don't have to use specific voice commands, but rather a normal natural dialogue. I can see these kinds of things making the Google response basically obsolete. I mean, let's look today and see what ChatGPT tells us. That's a pretty good definition. You know, the one thing that it really lacks is a picture. I don't think we're very far off before not only is it going to give us this answer here, but OpenAI is going to start using DALL-E to just draw its own pictures of trombones in an instant for us. And if I'm honest, frankly, it's a better answer than what we're seeing here in the Google search result, again, minus those images. The second place I really see this impacting SEO is in how the search engines like Google handle the content that's out there. You see, because when any sort of new tool is invented that can make content creation easier, there are a lot of content creators who are going to use it to excess, right? And Google has openly stated they do not like AI-generated content, and so the intent is that it's not going to be what ranks really well in the search results. Now, so far, Google doesn't have a really good programmatic way to identify AI-generated content, especially as the content gets better and more natural and human sounding. So that means that Google is going to have to continue to rely on other factors and probably increase its reliance on other factors to determine what content is likely to be authoritative and accurate. You might wonder why Google doesn't like this kind of content. Frankly, it shouldn't really matter, right? As long as the information is accurate and relevant to the reader. However, I think Google knows that when AI is generating content, the factual accuracy of that content is highly questionable in many cases. That might be true for a lot of bloggers too, but I digress. I think the main reason is, though, that with an AI, It's hard to identify the sources of that information. With real people, if Google can identify the creator of that content, the writer, the author, right, who it's being attributed to, and views through all of the different factors in the algorithm that writer is authoritative on the subject, then Google can, with a reasonable level of certainty, trust the information that's being provided. Again, without a real source to pull that from, an AI could be telling you anything, and you might believe it's true as a reader, especially because it writes in a way that seems extremely confident. So I want to pause here for a second. We're going to talk in just a minute about some of the other changes that I think are going to come specifically to blogging and content creation as a result of AI. But I want to talk a little bit about the limitations of AI, because I think this is an important foundation of understanding we need to have if we want to be content creators. And so there are some specific limitations that AI has and that I believe it's going to have for a long time. I won't say forever, but I will say for a very long time. First of all, AI generated content at this point really isn't new. The best it can do is look at a past data set and aggregate that information, and in some cases, potentially learn from that information and apply what it knows about one thing to a synonymous, or analogous other thing. Let me give you an example. A couple years ago in a video, I had to write an article about why ATVs backfire. I was given the topic just off the cuff. I didn't know I was going to have that topic leading into it. And at that point, I didn't have nearly the experience with ATVs that I might need to be able to really write that article. However, with a little bit of research on things that are specific to ATVs, as well as my knowledge of motorcycles, having ridden motorcycles like regularly for many years, I could see that there was so much that was the same. And because of that, writing that article was actually pretty easy for me, even though I had to do a little bit of research to sort of fill in the gaps. Well, AI, specifically Chat GPT, is capable to some extent of taking something from its data set, recognizing that this is the same, even though it's a little bit different, and applying what it knows over here. But the problem with that is the AI does not know its own limitations, and oftentimes applies some knowledge it has to a situation that it doesn't apply to. For example, in a conversation I had with Kyle Roof, I was asking him what his thoughts were about AI. And he told me that he asked Chat GPT about the Super Bowl in 2022 and its outcomes. Well, if you know, the data set for Chat GPT is from 2021. So it didn't know the answer. And yet it provided an answer with statistics about players who were not even in the game. And it provided those answers with a lot of confidence. Now, I have tried asking the same question now, and the AI has learned since then that questions relating to things that happened since its data set, since 2021, are probably questions that it shouldn't answer, and it tells me that today. So it is getting better, but it doesn't know all of its own limitations and is perfectly happy to provide you with an answer, whether it knows the right answer or not. That leads me to the next limitation, and that is that oftentimes the facts that we get from ChatGPT are incorrect. Now, this is something that shouldn't come as a surprise. ChatGPT is out here available for us to use, but right here on the main page under limitations, it tells you right off the bat, it may occasionally generate incorrect information. The purpose of ChatGPT being made available to us is for testing purposes, not for us to be able to rely on it for factual information and to create content for us to use publicly. So what is it that leads to this incorrectness? The AI is probability based. So when you ask it a question, it goes through its data set, and based upon probabilities, it gives you the answer that it thinks is most probable to be correct, based upon the data set that it has. The problem is it doesn't make you aware of the probability that it has. And because of that, you may be getting an answer that is provided as factual or definitive, where in reality, it's like there's a 5% chance that that's the correct answer. There's no way for us to know. All we know is, well, the AI said this is true. And so it's probably true. Now, another limitation is that at this point, I think probably, I'm not a computer scientist, and I'm certainly not an expert on AI and how they really work. But I think because of computation limitations, at this point, the AI is trained on a specific data set that ends in 2021. I think that training the AI on an ever-evolving live data set like the web today would probably require a much higher level of computation than what they're able to do at this point. And because of that, there's a lot of information that is just unavailable to the AI. It's actually kind of funny because I asked it some other questions as well. I was curious when a member of Project 24 asked it to write a limerick about me. I was like, oh, well, I guess it has some information. Well, I went and asked it some questions about me too, and it had no idea who I am. And it asked me to provide information about who I am so that it could then generate some responses. And so that's, I'm assuming, what that Project 24 member had to do to be able to have it generate that fun little limerick that it did. So Chat GPT certainly does not have all of the information. In fact, it's lacking a lot. And that leads me to the biggest limitation for AI that I think it has today, but I think it will have for a very long time. And that is that an AI is incapable of human experience. There are a lot of things that people ask about, that we write about as bloggers, and that we make videos about as content creators, where human experience is a necessary part of the answer. And the AI, the best it can do is aggregate responses from other people and generate an answer that it thinks is probably accurate. Chat GPT doesn't do product reviews. Chat GPT can't test anything. Chat GPT can't really give you an opinion on which the best product is, especially for a specific situation. The best it can do is give you the specs as well as maybe aggregate customer reviews, if it has access to those. But if someone asks me a question about off-roading, let's say, and I'm able to provide them an answer that has some subjectivity associated with it, some opinion built into the answer, but that's based upon the experiences that I have had, that answer is going to be met with a much higher level of trust because I've experienced it. Not only is it the statistics behind it saying that, yeah, this is a safe way to do this thing or whatever, but when I say it's also a really fun way to do it and the experience was exhilarating, the AI can't experience that. The best it can do is tell you what a bunch of other people said. And if blogging were to die, then where would you get the information of that other people said for the AI to use? It's a cycle, it's a paradox. There have to be people creating content for the AI to continue to have something to pull from. In fact, that's a common thread I've seen with a lot of the videos about AI, talking about how amazing it is, talking about DALL-E. If you've seen the images it can create, it's super cool. And I totally agree that it is. But in every instance, it has to pull inspiration from things that have already been created before by humans, like Marquez Brownlee did in a video. He asked it, give me a cat in the style of Monet. Well, if Monet hadn't painted, you wouldn't have the style of Monet. And here's the thing about humans. We never like things to stay the same for too long. Look at clothing, look at music, look at everything that we do in any popular culture. It is constantly changing. There are new trends coming every single year and probably micro trends within every single year. Things are always changing because as soon as they get stagnant, we get bored. Now, could an AI drive the next trends based upon the cycles of the past? Quite possibly. But the AI is not going to know if those new styles look good or if that kind of music is something people are going to really like, because the best it can do is compute. And we hear and we see and we process those things and decide what we like and don't like. So now let's come back to blogging. First, let's answer the question, is this going to spell the end of blogging? And I've kind of already answered that. No. We need content creators. The world will always need content creators. I do think, though, that there are some changes coming to blogging and that there are certain kinds of content that bloggers have been creating for a long time, many of them that I have been trying to promote you to stop doing, that those are just going to die. There's just going to be no point in those in the coming days. But there's a lot of content that I think still is going to have a very strong position, not just for the next couple of years, but probably indefinitely. So what is changing? Well, the really simple fact-based questions are probably questions that we shouldn't be focusing on so much anymore in our written content. That doesn't mean that the response post is dead. Response posts, for those of you who are new to this channel, are blog posts that we write where we're answering a specific question, usually in about 1,000 words, which, believe it or not, for us is a relatively short blog post. We can still answer specific questions, but we're probably not going to spend as much time answering questions that are very much fact-based, and honestly that an AI from its data set could very easily provide a good answer for. An example of this is an article that we showed on this channel a little while back, answering the question of what's the difference between a salad fork and a dinner fork. Well, everything that we wrote in that article, when I asked Chat GPT the same question, it basically provided all the same answers, with the difference that I could then, if I wanted to, follow up with an additional question and it would answer that question for me too. It did at least as good a job or a better job than a blog post could do, with one exception: no images or videos for that matter. I think anybody that's writing blog content that's just aggregating stuff that other people have written, it's already been mostly worthless, but it's only going to get worse because, frankly, the AI can do a far better job of it than you can. We need to create content that goes beyond facts and that moves into the space of, one, experiential knowledge that can only be gained through experience, and that, two, moves into that realm of providing more than just the information. And by more, I'm talking about providing maybe even some level of interest and entertainment, but also a high level of confidence in the information you're providing. When you do original research, when you do your own experiments, when you test products side by side, when you do that kind of stuff, you provide a cool experience for people, but you also provide a high degree of confidence in the answer that you end up providing them, because they can see the process and they get to know you, and you build up that rapport with them throughout that process. So that's the first change coming to blogging. Some types of content are just going to become less and less and less valuable to create, even though they're the ones being proliferated most. The next one is that there are a lot of people who are going to be relying on AI and generating massive amounts of content. Now, first of all, most people are going to do this and they're going to actually violate the terms of Chat GPT, which actually say that if you do want to use their content in any sort of a publication, you have to clearly state that it was AI generated. I don't think most people are doing that, but hey, I guess who cares about rules, right? But because of that and the changes that I mentioned coming to SEO, and search engines like Google needing to weed out that AI generated content, we as content creators are going to have to put a lot more focus on building EEAT. That stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And these are just basically those signals that we send to Google as well as to people that say that we know what we're talking about and they should be listening to us for good reason. That is something I'll be talking about in an interview with Kyle Roof here very shortly on this channel, and I mean very shortly. But here's another change I do see coming to blogging that ties into the last one, and that is AI is making it a lot easier to do some of the things that we're already doing, and to do them faster and in many cases better. So this is me saying I am not completely against AI and using it as a tool in blogging. What I am not proposing or as a proponent of is using AI to generate your content for you. Mostly because I don't like writing things that are completely factually incorrect, where if somebody who actually is familiar at all with the niche were to read my content could easily call me out. I don't like that, right? And so I don't like creating that kind of content. I'm not gonna just trust it. Everything that an AI writes for you, you need to be able to know whether or not that's true. And so if you don't know your niche very well and have to fact check everything said in a blog post, you're probably going to waste a lot of time, and maybe you should have just written the blog post. Anyway, some of those things that I have already been playing around with Chat GPT for is helping me come up with ideas. Let's say that you find a topic that you want to write this article, and you're trying to think of what are some other articles I could write around that so I can get a good cluster of content. Well, you could just ask Chat GPT, what are some related topics or related keywords to fill in the blank? And you're going to get a whole bunch of results. You could say, give me 20 topics closely related to this one. And it will give you 20 topics, and you, using your brain, can pick from that list and identify 5 or 6 maybe that you think are a good fit and that you could write to support that other article. Another great way you could use this is to come up with title ideas. Titles are usually pretty hard for a lot of bloggers, and we need to get better at writing good titles. We can use this for YouTube videos as well. In fact, I asked it a little bit ago for some ideas for the title for this video, and it gave me a whole bunch. Now, I'm not taking one of those titles specifically and using it. However, it really sparked some ideas for me to be able to come up with a little bit more intriguing idea for the title for this video than maybe what I would have come up with by myself. It certainly helped me to do it much more quickly. But you see there, I still have to know what kind of titles work well so that I can see which ones from this list really could be useful. Which, by the way, is another principle that's come to light as a result of this. I've seen a lot of people who are concerned about, coding jobs because Chat GPT can write code for you. Who needs a developer at this point, right? However, the videos I've seen where it's writing code, it's when you specify, I want you to write me a function in this language that does this. I wouldn't know what to tell the Chat GPT to give me the code that I need, nor would I know what to do with that code and how that one function fits within the context of generating a WordPress plugin or theme, because that's not my area of expertise. You still need someone who knows how to put the pieces together and knows what questions to ask. Again, at least for now and probably several years to come. And I'm finding that principle to be true with a lot of what the AI tools are able to do. The more knowledge we have, the better able we are to take what it provides us, use that as inspiration, and put it into our content with the right context. I think if you asked AI to write you a great video script, cool, it could do that. But your video may or may not do that well. However, if Marques Brownlee asks an AI tool to write him a video script, that video is going to do probably really well. Why? Marques knows how to make a great video, and he has a lot of history and a lot of people that like him and trust him. And so Marques isn't just going to take the script the AI gives him and present it whole cloth without first going through it and making sure that it doesn't suck. And he's the one who knows whether or not it's going to suck. So here's the long and short of it. AI tools still have a ton of limitations. They are not in a position to kill blogging. However, AI tools are going to change the game for both SEO and for blogging. And the best way that we can make sure that we as bloggers stay relevant is to build up EEAT. And one of the best forms of that is actually to work on building a brand. AIs don't generate brands, they generate information. Although I did ask an AI tool to help me come up with brand names or domain names. But again, it was just for inspiration. It does not build a brand. It does not build rapport. It does not make people want to come back to your content because they trust you. Focus on that. Focus on building EEAT. Focus on generating original and unique content that goes above and beyond what an AI is even capable of doing. And you're going to stay relevant as a blogger for a long time.